All right, so I want to give a big congratulations to Jake's Miami Hurricanes. They just made it to the Final Four for the first time in school history. They were in the Elite Eight last year, and now they're in the Final Four. Big props to them. Huge turnaround in that program. Obviously, people always they mentioned Duke, they mentioned Virginia, but we got to give props to Miami. They were always there. They were the best team record-wise heading into the conference tournament, and they've proved themselves. Jake, who do you think on the team has really stood out throughout this tournament?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a moment, but you were mentioning earlier that Duke and Virginia, they were the most talked about teams in the conference. Which Miami beat both Duke and Virginia. They've always played Duke close, the three games that they played this year. Just didn't get them in the tournament. As for who stepped up in the tournament, I think in the four games that the Miami Hurricanes have played, I don't really think you can single out a player who stepped up. I think everyone kind of stepped up in their own way. No Chad O'Neal, Isaiah Wong, Jordan Miller. Isaiah Wong was always great. He was the ACC Player of the Year for a reason. So, I mean, I don't really think you can single out a single player on that roster.
Yeah. I mean, so can they win it all though? That's really the big question because now you reach the Final Four, and that's the question. Like, yes, the Final Four is great. It's by itself an accomplishment. You'll always have that. Miami's coach knows better than anybody. He took the George Mason to the Final Four in 2006. But can they move on? And I think they can. Miami is just they have a lot of depth in their roster. They got a lot of shooters. They got a lot of guys who can come on in the second half when people foul out. And they finished the game. They finished it versus Texas. They finished it versus Drake. They held Drake to like no points in like the last 4 minutes and 50 seconds or something like that.
Hmm.
You know, so I look at the field that's left. Obviously FAU, who they kind of revolve around one player. They got that number 33. He's kind of like a miniature Zach Edey in that way. And San Diego State, they're good. They got some shooters, but they're not quite as deep as I think Miami is. But Miami doesn't face either of those teams right away. They face
Right.
UConn, and UConn
Yes.
plays very well. They've got crazy amount of depth. They've got a worldwide experience. Like those guys have been in the tournament for a while. Their coach has experience, and Miami's going to have to go toe to toe with them. And Miami can't fall back like they've fallen back against other teams because UConn will just take it away. UConn just beat Gonzaga of all teams by like 30. Like
Yeah.
that's insane. And that's not even saying Gonzaga's bad. UConn's just that good. So I think Miami can definitely play with UConn. I think Miami can play with anybody. They're that good. They just got if they fall behind with UConn, I don't know if they're gonna come back though. And I really think this tournament comes down. I think this tournament comes down to Miami or UConn. I don't think either of the other two teams are going to win it. All due respect, FAU has had some great wins. They've knocked out the entire state of Tennessee. They beat Middle Tennessee in Conference USA tournament. They beat Memphis in the first round when Memphis imploded. We talked about that. And they beat Tennessee. They handled Tennessee pretty well. I mean, it was kind of close, but I mean, FAU was in the driver's seat all that game. So this is not to say that those teams, and San Diego State, of course, has had great wins too. This is not to say that those teams haven't had great wins. I think it's kind of like when Loyola made it. I think the big dogs are going to put some defense down, and UConn and Miami know how to play gritty. So I think whoever wins this game is gonna move on. But Miami definitely has a shot, and it'll be interesting to see. What do you think
Yeah.
Miami as the Hurricanes fan? Do you think Miami's that shot, Jake?
I might be a little biased when saying this, and us on PWTB, we're not biased, so I'm going to refrain from saying my projection on this. Um,
True, true. And always with sports, we definitely do this. With everything else, we always go, here's both sides. Here's what I think, but here's why it's reasonable for the other way too, But yeah, with sports, no picking because we know it's going to be biased.